Imagine this. The best pasta sauce you have ever tasted sits abandoned on a plate. Wasted sauce. That is a tragedy. If only you had used Barilla al Bronzo pasta. Its bronze-cut texture holds your sauce and scoops up every last drop. The Italians call that scarpetta. Capture sauce the Italian way. Barilla al Bronzo. Click or tap the banner to find out more.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. Between two-factor authentication, strong passwords, and a VPN, you try to be in control of how your info is protected. But many other places also have it, and they might not be as careful. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points a second for threats. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast for 40% off. Terms apply. This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit Progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states or situations.
Morning decisions. A creamy mocha frappuccino drink? A sweet vanilla? Maybe a smooth caramel or that white chocolate mocha. Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Start your day with bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drinks. Pick up a bottle near you wherever you buy your groceries.
Welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network, and you can follow us on YouTube at youtube.com/@RamsUpPodcast. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined often by my football guru, Ian, along with a bunch of other friends of the show on occasion. Let's get to it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? I'm going to get into the second half of my All-McVay All-Star Team. Last episode, I shared the offense and special teams. This episode, I'm going to get into the defense. Probably going to be a couple of more contentious picks on defense than we had on offense anyways, but it's all for fun. I hope you enjoy it. We'll rehash the whole team at the end. Now, it is episode 766, and before I talk about a player who wore number 66, I want to nip something in the bud. Episode 765, I talked about Fred Stokes, who wore number 60 as well, and I just want to make sure you're aware, everyone's aware, I have talked about Tom Mack 100 or 200 or 300 episodes ago. I also talked about Harlan Savar and John Sullivan. So I've hit these more impactful guys. I'm going to try to get, just jump around and almost randomly select players at times because I find that more interesting than just picking the Hall of Fame and, the superstars we're all aware of. For episode 766, I already talked about Brian Young, Tom Newberry, and Myron Patios. This episode, I'm going to talk about Ross Tucker's brother. I talked about Ross Tucker recently, and I had forgotten about this, but his brother, guard Rex Tucker, also played for the Rams very briefly, 8 games in 2005. He was drafted by the Bears in the 3rd round of the 1999 draft, eventually found his way onto the Rams. This was after Ross Tucker's time with the Rams, and neither of them should be confused with Ryan Tucker, the guy who has some really good content on YouTube and other places doing play analytics. So before we get into that all-star team, the All-McVay all-star team on the defensive side of the ball, just a few news and notes here. Rams have wrapped things up. The next big date, July 22nd, training camp at Loyola Marymount University, rookies and veterans report. And in the meantime, Kobe Turner, Davis Allen, and Steve Avila off to Melbourne. They could be back by now. Rams really pushing hard on expanding their brand internationally. So kind of cool to see. And I also wanted to rehash or actually dive into the guys that I think are risers that elevated their status during the mini camps and OTAs. And one of them to say that Devontae Adams has elevated his profile sounds kind of silly, but he's getting up there in age, and we have to have a little bit of a doubt in the back of our mind if he still has it. I think he does, and Andrew Whitworth saying he still looks like one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and I think Whitworth has some credibility on the subject. I think Konate Mumfield, by all accounts, is a guy that's going to stick on this 53-man roster. He's nothing but good things coming out about him. And, of course, Terrence Ferguson doing everything you expect from a second-round draft pick at the tight end position. He is going to be an integral part of this offense, I have a feeling. And I would not be surprised if he did not play at all in the preseason, the way things are going and the way the Rams have handled this in the past. If we don't see Terrence Ferguson in the preseason, that's a really, really good sign. And another guy that's really stepped up, and I've been kind of ignoring him, and that's A.J. Green, the 6'2", 198-pound cornerback out of Oklahoma State. He was undrafted in 2020, 3 years with the Browns, and then he was on the Vikings practice squad, and then last year the Rams practice squad. While with the Browns, 2 interceptions, and he may have a shot. It's a really crowded room, but he's one of the bigger cornerbacks on this expanded roster, and I think he has a shot making plays in camp, and that's what it takes. There's just so much competition, who knows, and bringing Darion Kendrick back, and then also another factor factoring into A.J. Green's chances of making this roster is the play of Emmanuel Forbes. The Rams might really be onto something. Another Rams reclamation project at the cornerback position. Witherspoon, Darius Williams, 2 guys that were pretty much just discarded by other franchises. And remember, I talked about what Albert Breer said. A lot of franchises, including the Rams, don't look for stop signs at cornerback. They look for speed bumps due to the way the game is called, due to the advanced play design of offenses. They just want a good group of good cornerbacks, not necessarily shut down corner types. And Emmanuel Forbes is fitting the bill. He could end up being our number 4 cornerback, a former first-round pick. So that's a really good sign. And then there is Brennan Jackson. And you know what? Everybody loves our Ram insiders, but I'm really disappointed that we haven't heard anything about Brennan Jackson. At least I haven't. And then I stumbled across an article on Yahoo where Sean McVay calling out the play of Brennan Jackson. Kind of forget about him because of the selection of Josiah Stewart this year. But so you got Young and Verse as the bookend outside linebackers. Josiah Stewart is going to be on this roster one way or another, right? And then you have Nick Hampton and Keir Thomas, 2 guys who have hung around for a while and have played some good football at times. And then Brennan Jackson. And McVay really likes what he sees and is excited to see what he brings to the table. Now remember, they're looking for someone to gobble up those snaps that Michael Hoyt had last year, and Jackson could be the guy. Stewart could end up being a very good player, but sometimes it takes a year at that position, right? Sometimes it takes a year, to diversify your pass rushing, change up your game a little bit, learn the ins and outs of the positions, how to seal the edge while still rushing the passer, all that stuff. We saw Young and Verse struggle with this at times. So maybe it's Brennan Jackson who really didn't play. He's on the 53-man roster all year, didn't get in a game significantly until that Week 18 game against the Seahawks. So, hey, if Brennan Jackson steps it up and he's our 3rd or 4th outside linebacker, a guy that was lauded for his physical play, his aggressive play at the college level, man, glad to hear McVay is excited about Brennan Jackson. Now we'll get into that McVay All-Star team next up.
Hey all, I'm Jamie Lynn Sigler, a mom, actor, and advocate. I know how overwhelming it can be trying to decide which treatment is right for you. I've been there. But you should know you're not alone. You can do this. Start with some research, talk to the community, and most importantly, don't be afraid to ask your doctor questions. You might find results that speak for themselves. That's how I landed on Kesimpta. Ask your doctor if Kesimpta, ofatumumab, could be right for you. You can check out the details at kesimpta.com.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
All right, everybody, back to my All-McVay All-Star team. I already shared the offense and special team selections. If you missed that video, go back and check it out. Or, wait for the end here. I'll recap everything. Today, selecting the defense, and we'll start with the defensive line. And we have one that's pretty obvious, Aaron Donald. He will be the centerpiece of this defense. Do we need to discuss this at all? Aaron Donald is the center of this defense, the starting defensive tackle. Play him wherever you want. He'll get the job done. Who do we play alongside Aaron Donald? I'm only going with 3 defensive linemen. And there's some guys to consider. Sue, he was only here for 1 year with the Rams, impactful. Greg Gaines, a guy that was, played that run-stuffing role, darn good player. Ashawn Robinson, kind of the same deal, very good player. More of a 2-down defensive lineman, nothing wrong with that. Sebastian Joseph Day, I think an underappreciated player. But I'm going back to Michael Brockers, who was, Aaron Donald's wingman there for several years. 5 years with McVay, started virtually every game, very durable, solid defensive lineman. And I think it makes sense to have Brockers over Robinson and Gaines. You wouldn't want Brockers and one of those guys. And then the other guy I selected, maybe some recency bias going on here, but I went with Kobe Turner. I think Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, and Kobe Turner. Turner's only been here for 2 years. I get it. But I think he deserved it. He's proven to be, just an outstanding player, double-teamed constantly, much like Aaron Donald was his entire career. But those are my 3 defensive linemen. Aaron Donald, Michael Brockers, and Kobe Turner. Now, maybe some pushback. I think the one I really feel bad about leaving off this team is Ashawn. But like I say, he was a 2-down defensive tackle, defensive lineman at best. Just an extremely good player, though. Now we'll get to the linebackers. We'll talk inside linebackers first here. And I'm not including Bobby Wagner. I participated in that legacy all-time Ram draft, and one of the guys picked Bobby Wagner because you could pick anybody that played even one game for the Rams. But for my all-star team, I can't justify putting him on this team. And I considered Alec Ogletree one of my favorite Rams of recent years, and I've talked about it many times. Just a super friendly guy, very engaging with the fans. We witnessed that experience twice. So shout out to Alec Ogletree. But I went with Corey Littleton, the undrafted free agent that just was an incredible sideline-to-sideline linebacker. And, his career kind of tailed off after he left, unfortunately. But while he was with the Rams, he was darn good under McVay. And then the other guy I picked got a little bit of, not a wonderful feeling selecting him, but I have to include Ernest Jones. It's got to be Ernest Jones. Again, not here for a very long time and left under some awkward circumstances, but he's my other inside linebacker. And then the outside linebackers, 2 guys that were impactful, but here for a very short time, and I'm not going to include them. That's Dante Fowler and Von Miller, much like Bobby Wagner. Now, Fowler had one of the biggest plays in Rams history, and Von Miller played on that Super Bowl winning team. But there's some other guys that I think we need to talk about. First is Robert Quinn. Now, he played just 1 year under McVay, had 8.5 sacks. And then there's Leonard Floyd. He was here for several years under McVay and rock solid. Very reliable, a constant threat off the edge. So I got to include Leonard Floyd. And now Robert Quinn versus Jared Verse. What do we do about that? Now, Floyd is in for sure. Quinn, Verse, I'm kind of torn. I'm going to go with Robert Quinn when you compare the 1 year versus 1 year Verse. Now, I get it. Verse, a year from now, it's probably going to be Jared Verse if I did this again. That's the full expectation here. It's going to be Jared Verse. But for now, I'm going to go with Robert Quinn. And this is probably one of the positions I'm going to get some criticism for, and I get it. It's just, it's a tough call. I'm going with Littleton and Jones in the middle, Quinn and Floyd on the edges. That's what I'm going with. And Jared Verse, we'll talk about him another day, another time. Maybe we'll talk about him a little bit more at the end here. I have a feeling. Now we get to the secondary, and, what are we going to talk about here? The DBs. Jalen Ramsey's in. He's the solid number one cornerback. Guys I considered, Tremaine Johnson, just 1 year under McVay, though. Aqib Talib, 2 years, but only 13 starts. Akella Witherspoon, 22 starts, 4 interceptions. Troy Hill, 4 years under McVay, 8 interceptions, 2 pick sixes. But I went with, along with Ramsey, Marcus Peters, who 2 years with the Rams, 22 starts and 5 interceptions, all that under McVay. And I had to go with Darius Williams, 37 starts over 5 years. That's, he was here for 4 and then left and came back, 7 interceptions. And he's had some really big plays in his years with the Rams as well. Last year, the interception against the 49ers, in the playoffs against the Seahawks. So I went with Ramsey, Peters, and D-Will. And then safeties, I considered Taylor Rapp. Had a long tenure here, but a lot of Ram fans wouldn't be excited about him on this all-star team, so I passed him up. I passed up Nick Scott, LaMarcus Joyner, Mark Barron, who toggled back and forth between safety and linebacker, Eric Weddle, who also had 2 stints with the Rams, the last one extremely important, helping the Rams win a Super Bowl. But I went with 2 guys that were just long-term steadying influences on the back end for McVay, and that's John Johnson, 6 years with the Rams, 57 starts, 11 interceptions, and the other one, Jordan Fuller. Until he got hurt, he was a stud. I think he was on the trajectory to be one of the best safeties ever, but he just got banged up and ended up leaving. 5 years with the Rams, 55 starts and 7 interceptions. So those are my safeties. So I look at the secondary, John Johnson and Jordan Fuller on the back end. Nothing to be super excited about, but, the Rams have done very well with pretty good safeties, I would say. And then Marcus Peters, Jalen Ramsey, and Darius Williams. How'd you like to have both of those guys on the back, playing cornerback at the same time together? Man, that'd be pretty cool. Now, the final team here, the All-McVay roster. I'll go through this whole thing one more time. The offense, I had Matthew Stafford and Todd Gurley. The offensive tackles, Andrew Whitworth and Rob Havenstein. The guards, Roger Saffold and Kevin Dotson. And the center, Coleman Shelton. The wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, Nakua, and Woods. And the place kicker, Zerline. And I think on the earlier edition of this, I get Roger Saffold and Matthew Stafford. I ping-ponged their names back and forth constantly. My bad. It is Roger Saffold at guard, not Matthew Stafford. And then on the defensive line, Donald, Brockers, and Turner. The outside linebackers, Floyd and Quinn. Linebackers, Littleton and Jones. The cornerbacks, Ramsey, Peters, and Williams. And then the safety, Johnny Johnson's and Jordan Fuller is the other one. Special teams, I went with Johnny Hecker, long snapper, Jake McQuaid, and the kicker, Greg Zerline. And I added a returner, Tavon Austin. And Honorable mention, I threw in at the end here, I got to include Jared Verse. I got 12 defenders here, and it depends on how you line things up. Could you play Quinn, Floyd, and Verse together? I think you could, sit down one or both linebackers for that matter, or one of the cornerbacks, sit down D-Will and sit down Corey Littleton and run Verse, Quinn, and Floyd out there together. The Rams mix and match, or two defensive linemen at times. So why went ahead and included Jared Verse? So there you have it. My All-McVay roster, let me know how you feel about it in the comments. Probably got some mistakes in here. Probably got some typos on the YouTube channel. That's how I roll. I apologize for them in advance. I think it's a pretty darn good team. Certainly some strengths. Defensive line, edge perhaps, quarterback, running back. There's some positions that maybe we would be thrilled about as an all-star team, but all in all, not too shabby. That is my All-McVay, my all Sean McVay roster. That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.